Welcome to the Lazy Millennial Lounge. Miss Jerisha Hawk, your favorite business coach's favorite business coach. It's good to have you here.
Megan, it's always a pleasure. When I got the request, I was like, yes, yes, and yes. Tell me when to sign up and where I need to be, and I will be there. So thanks for having me.
No problem. This is a nice full circle moment because the way that I found out about you was through a podcast, through Nikayla's Side Hustle Pro, when you were on her show. And I was in Best Buy looking for some AirPods. And I was listening to your episode and I was like, this woman is saying all the things that I needed to hear and didn't know that I needed to hear right now. That's how I discovered you. So it's like a full circle moment for me. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, that's what I love about podcasts. Like, you never know what you're necessarily going to find in an episode, and then you end up hearing exactly what you need. So yeah, I'm like grateful to be here and super excited to be able to serve you in this full circle type of moment way.
Awesome. So I like to start off the show getting a little bit of background context about you. So tell us what you thought you were going to be doing with your life when you were around like graduating from high school age, and how does that compare to what you are doing with your life right now?
Graduating from high school, I thought I was going to be like an architect. I thought I was going to be designing spaces and homes for like residential homes.
Mm-hmm.
I used to play The Sims, like the computer game, all the time as a kid. And I would go online and like Google floor plan blueprints and like build these houses for my Sims. And I just always loved the idea of like structures and spaces and like how that impacts somebody's like overall like lifestyle, because your home is like a sacred place. So that's what I thought I would be doing when I graduated from high school. Like, I thought I was going to go be an architect, and like I had this slight desire to like go to law school at some point and live out like a Legally Blonde type of life. I didn't know when that was going to play in or if that ever would, but that was just like kind of a thought in my mind. I mean, my lifestyle now and like the work that I do far exceeds any of the expectations I had probably placed on myself. Like, I always knew that, like, I'm a type of person that no matter what, when I do something, I give it my all. And I don't care if I'm cleaning a bathroom, like I am going to clean that bathroom like 100%. So I've always known to be the type of person that like 100% commits to whatever it is that I'm doing.
Mhm.
But like how it compares, like I never thought I would, like I thought I would always like climb the corporate ladder, and like I always aspired to have like a C-suite position, be like a representation of like a person who looks like us, who's at the top. So I could like have the influential power to change like the corporate internal structure to remove barriers for people who look like, for women and women of color.
Yeah, because you were in
Um,
corporate, you were an engineer, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
which I didn't think that I was going to happen when I was 18. I did not think I would be coming in. That wasn't even a thought at the time.
Got you.
But I think like how it relates to today, it's just so interesting how that desire of like being a representation for what is possible
Mhm.
and removing barriers and just creating access has been something I've always craved. I just never thought I would be doing it through this vehicle of
Yeah.
like the way I do it now.
So can you explain for the people like what type of service do you offer now? What do you do as a business coach?
We specialize in high ticket sales. When I think it's really important that when you're a new business owner to think through, what is my actual business model? Do I want to be selling a low ticket item at a high volume where I need a lot of people to purchase it to hit my revenue goals? Or do I want to sell to a small number of people, but selling it at a high ticket price point? So you're typically working with clients in a higher touch point, more in-depth type of delivery of service, but you need to only enroll a small number of people to hit your revenue goals.
Mhm.
So the way that the types of clients that we work with are individuals who want to be selling services $1,500 to $15,000, and who want to understand the specific nuances that go with packaging a high-end offer. How do you structure and deliver that service to make sure that you're actually delivering on the promise that you guaranteed? And also, like, how do you deal with the internal aspects when it comes to selling? How do you raise your rates? Once you've raised your rates, how do you actually communicate and articulate your program promise in a way that your audience understands? How do you overcome those sales objections now that you're selling at a higher price point? Money is always really easy for somebody to say, it's just not in our budget this quarter.
Mhm.
How do you handle that objection, and kind of remove that objection through through like sales psychology and infusing that into your organic content creation? So, I'm glad that you asked that question because there's a million business coaches, but we specialize in one-on-one service providers, whether they're coaches, freelancers, copywriters, um, who want to sell at a high ticket price point, whether they're doing that in a one-on-one way or if they want to leverage their one-on-one service and turn it into a high ticket group program.
Mhm.
So that's like the specific niche within the business coaching realm that we serve clients in now. A lot of program promise packaging, and a lot of like sales psychology, because most of our clients are really good at the service that they provide,
Mhm.
but they need some sharpening and skill set development around actually like selling the service that they're really great at delivering.
Yeah, this would be a good time to mention if anybody doesn't know that I am a client of Jerisha's. So I think I joined your program Services That Sell in December 2018. It was like a couple of months after I had left my full-time pharmacist job, and I was already in business, and I was feeling like I needed a business coach, but I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. And so that's why when I heard that episode, I immediately knew that like you were the person that I was looking for, because that was something that I could not verbalize, but I heard you verbalize it and then I understood. So the service that I offer is content marketing strategy for private practice healthcare providers. Could you give some examples of other services that people in your programs offer? Like, what are examples of services that could be considered high ticket?
I mean, I think, well, I'm glad that you bring that up, because I know even in the realm of copywriting, there's, I think, typically like a stigma that, oh, if you're a copywriter, you can't make a lot of money. Copywriters can make a crap ton of money, by the way.
Okay. Buku bucks.
Boku bucks. But copywriters like yourself, we work with a lot of accountants. So individuals who want to provide like bookkeeping, tax preparation, financial planning, we have virtual CFOs and virtual controllers. So like the financial realm, lawyers who provide a service, but maybe they used to work at a law firm and now they're building their own. And law school teaches you how to be a great lawyer. It does not teach you how to run the business behind, like, how do you position yourself in the marketplace? How do you actually attract a high caliber clientele? Danielle Tucker, like, I'm thinking of like actual clients now. She's a website designer. So graphic designers, website designers. We have, Sonia, she's actually a doula, helps, delivers babies to this in this world. We have somebody who's actually in academics who helps other professionals and academics get their first research grant and helps them through navigating that process. So, when you think about people, like who's in a good position to sell a high ticket service, the main thing is somebody who's really has some level of expertise in regards to what it is that they do, that they know, they have confidence that, yes, I can get this client a result, who's willing to actually niche down and specialize, who's like open to the idea of not being a generalist, but capitalizing on a specific niche within, like, you're not just a copywriter.
Mhm.
You've carved out an individual lane for yourself within the world of copywriting for healthcare professionals. So somebody who has a level of expertise where they, you've probably had certifications, you've invested in training, maybe your educational background, maybe you have a degree in it or something along those lines. You have confidence that you can deliver the service.
Mhm.
You're willing to niche down and actually specialize. And typically, if you're somebody who's selling a one-on-one type of service, whether that's done for you or done with you, like in a coaching capacity, somebody who's willing, who really care. I think the people who do really well with high ticket offers, they really do care about their clients getting the result that's promised.
Mhm.
It's not just about teaching somebody this vague information and kind of like letting them figure it out on their own. Most people who sell high ticket, who do really well, actually really care about supporting their clients at a level of depth that helps guide them to ensure that they actually achieve the result that they're promising within their offer.
Right. Okay. So if someone were to go on like your Facebook page, your Instagram, they would hear you talk a lot about flipping the funnel. And I think that that concept is important for grounding our conversation about sales today from your perspective. So could you give an explanation of like what that means when people hear you say that, what that process is like, or what that describes. What is flipping the funnel?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Because I know for me, when I decided to flip the funnel for the first time, it came out of a strong, like, urge of frustration. Because typically, when you kind of like start stumbling in the online world, many of us get caught up into the traditional model that we see a lot of like the gurus in our space talking about. You know, you talk about top line of funnel is create a bunch of free content so you can attract a large audience. And then from there, now that you're like creating this free content and you're building your email list and you're growing this large audience, this big top of the funnel, then the whole goal is how do you start to get people to move down the funnel like a traditional, you know, like funnel shape.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you try to create a tripwire where you sell them something like a $19 ebook or a $27 DIY digital course. And then once they trip on that and buy that, then you sell them or introduce them to some like mid-level offer that's maybe like $97 to $300. That might be a little bit more in depth of a course, or maybe a 1 hour strategy session or a pick my brain session with you. And then you try to get them again to buy really your big thing at the very bottom of the funnel, where you're kind of thinking like, get this huge amount of people in, and then hopefully they'll matriculate down to eventually they bought your tripwire, they bought this mid-level offer before they ever get introduced to your actual big offer, which will probably solve the actual problem that they have. And that's normally priced $1,000. Most people do maybe $1,000 to $3,000 or something. And you know, that's a traditional funnel or the traditional like ascension model that a lot of individuals teach and preach, especially when you are just new into the online space. Mm-hmm. And I got caught in that funnel and got caught in that wheel of like, I need to grow a big email list. I need to have this huge following. I need to make all of these offers. And that, you know, you get to the point where it's like, I felt out of integrity because I'm just creating stuff to fill this ascension model funnel, but it felt like complete crap. Like I'm just I need to throw together this ebook. I need to throw together this DIY course. And I was like, F this, I'm flipping the funnel. Like I'm going to focus on a minimum viable audience. So instead of trying to like appeal to a large audience of people, I'm just going to focus on this like minimum viable, super dialed in and specific group of people. Then from there, I'm going to introduce my high ticket offer as my entry level offer. So like $1,000 or $3,000 offer out of the gate, and just focus on converting those individuals rather than doing it in reverse. So that's like the whole concept of flipping the funnel is instead of trying to do a high volume, like low ticket, multi-tiered level game, which at the time I did not have even capacity to like support that from a logistics and execution.
That's a lot of work. That's so much work to have to do that. Like you're trying to build an email list with like tens of thousands of people, and
I'm like, listen, I don't even know that many people like in real life. And then secondly, I'm like, we still don't even rely on that after 4 years of being in business and over, you know, $800,000 in revenue generated. Like we still have a flip the funnel model where we focus on a minimum viable audience. Like we still don't have a large email list. Like literally 3 months ago, I got the swipe up feature on Instagram after building my Instagram account for like 6 years. You know, and in retrospect, like a lot of my peers who I'm in masterminds or coaching programs with who have similar revenue as we do, and our profit margins are typically, even if we make less money than them from a top line revenue perspective, my profit margins are way healthier because our business isn't dependent on me spending 40% of our revenue on Facebook ads to grow this large audience. Because either you're going to do it organically or you're going to pay for it. And most people pay for it because it takes a long time to grow a huge organic big audience. So that's the whole idea of flipping the funnel is kind of, it goes against a lot of the, you know, preliminary like business model strategies that are typically taught in the online space.
Mm-hmm. So one of the challenges I think I know I definitely faced when I enrolled in the Services That Sell program is I really loved the concept of flipping the funnel and I was all for it. But then when you flip the funnel and you realize that this offer that you're selling, this is the offer, like this is the big daddy of all of them, then you have to wrap your mind around feeling confident enough to actually sell that offer. And so that becomes the gap between, you know, you having this service that you can offer someone and being able to like actually get money for it. Because if you can't cross that bridge to, offer the service or overcome objections when you have offered the service, then you aren't getting the money. So then you're just sitting there like, dang, I got this, $1,500, $2,000 offer, and I don't know how to influence someone enough to actually purchase it. So in your expertise, having seen so many people like come into this process, what are those mindset blocks that are keeping people from being able to sell premium high ticket offers?
I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is probably one of the biggest hurdles that every one of our clients has to overcome, whether they realize it when they join the program or they realize it after module 1 is done. Or when it comes time to actually start their lean launch. And it's like, wow, why has it been 4 months and you still haven't started your lean launch? Well, and then all these beliefs start to present themselves. And I think so much about choosing to go into this business model is a lot of unlearning and actually being aware of the beliefs that you are determining or defining as truth.
Yes, Lord.
And like this belief that I have to, and I think especially for like women and for women of color specifically, many of us culturally, we have been taught that we have to be twice as good to get paid half as much. So many of us keep thinking that, okay, I just need to get another certification. I need to get another degree. I need more education, or I need somebody to give me their stamp of approval. Many of us have never defined who is this authority figure or institution that we feel as if we need this approval from, but we just think we need more before we can start selling. And it's interesting, in the traditional like online ascension model funnel where you're like doing all the things, I think a lot of people default to that because staying busy distracts you from the work that's actually necessary to build a profitable business. You can stay busy creating this course for 3 months and then, oh, I need to build a big email list. So you spend another 4 months just trying to grow a list, but you've never actually tried to sell anything. So you can kind of trick yourself into feeling as if you're growing a business, when in actuality, you just kind of like, you're creating things and you're just staying busy. But business is all about, are you creating opportunities for transactions to take place? And if you aren't, and I always say sales is a contact sport, and conversions happen through conversations. So if you're never making contact with potential prospects, and if you're not engaging in conversation, you're not doing the one thing that actually defines whether you have a business or whether you have a hobby, which is, am I creating opportunities for transactions to take place? And so I think I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think we need to challenge these beliefs of like, when you keep, a lot of our clients will say, well, I have to wait until I have more leads until I can start selling. That is a belief. One, we have never, like, what does more leads even mean? So there's a belief that you have to have a large audience before you can start selling. Is that actually true? Or is that a fear-based, self-imposed, or externally taught belief that has been placed on you that you are holding as a truth? So like this belief that you have to have a large audience before you can start selling, this belief that you have to have a large list of testimonials before you can sell high ticket is another belief that is a misconception, or I don't think that is true, because a lot of the time our clients, like you aren't new to doing what you do. You've done it before. You're just new to selling it for yourself. So It's not like you're a newbie. You have, like, you may never have thought about them as testimonials or as client results before, because maybe it wasn't done in the way that you're packaging it now, but you're not new to getting results. You're just new to selling for yourself. So I think those are probably two of the biggest beliefs that hold our clients back. And probably the third is that like, I need to have like more live attendees to my live streams, or I need more engagement, or else this doesn't work. Because we teach a lot of sales through live video on social media, which you do such a great job with on your Instagram stories and like your Facebook business page and now your podcast. But like this belief that I need to have a large audience, or I need to have a lot of engagement, or else my content isn't really, like, it's not really impactful content, or it's not high value.
Right.
And engagement, it's just an interesting thing when I challenge you, if you're listening to this and this is resonating at all, think about the generalizations. Like, I need more leads, I need more engagement. Those are very like general statements. And like, either you need to actually define what that means from a metrics and a measurable like data perspective, and two, question, where did I learn this thought? Like,
Mhm.
is this a self-imposed limiting belief right now? Do I have any facts to back this up? Or is this just a fear-based feeling that I am experiencing that is holding me back from taking the action that I know that my business needs? When you
Yeah.
can start to unravel those things, you'll start to get to the truth, and not just like your self-imposed limiting truth that you have defined as, as a belief that you maybe didn't even realize you were holding on to.
Mm-hmm. And then the limiting beliefs that you've mentioned, like I also think about the topic of money specifically, where you also like help us address the limiting beliefs, not even just around sales, but of money, which I think can also be underlying some of those limiting beliefs about sales. So, kind of how you mentioned the process of kind of writing down like all of the things you think of when you think about selling something. Same thing with money. Like, what are the things that have been ingrained in you about, the evils of money, or, money not being available or not being,
We
everywhere.
always like just have enough.
Yeah, yeah,
Ever in a space of like financial abundance.
yeah.
Like I'm glad that you brought that up too, because you're so much about, it's interesting. Like I always say, like business is the best form of therapy if you allow it to be, because so much of like what you've been taught or like what you've experienced in your upbringing or the environment that you grew up in directly impacts how you show up in your business as a CEO.
Hmm.
You have this underlying belief that like you only have enough, my grandma was like, we ain't got no, it was always, we ain't got no money for that. I don't care what, money don't grow on trees. And we always just had enough to cover our bills. So
Hmm.
like we were always just getting by rather than being in a place of financial abundance and enough surplus. And realizing that belief, you truths and like what your money stories are and how much of that is reflective of where your business is today. Like, do you always just have enough to cover your business expenses? Are
Hmm.
you always like trying to play catch up? And a lot of the time it's because your subconscious is still operating under that mindset and that belief. And if you hold on to that as a truth, there's no way your business is ever going to be in a position of financial abundance if there's a core underlying belief that you always just have enough.
Yep.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up too, because especially when you start stepping into like a higher ticket price range, um, those beliefs have a direct impact on how you show up in your sales and how you position your offer.
Hmm. Okay. So let's get into the nitty gritty. When you are teaching your students how to sell, do you coach them through a specific process? And if so, like what is the sales process that you help them create or develop?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a framework and a method behind everything that we do, which you are fully aware of. But like, I think the biggest thing before you even start introducing your offer or sharing your offer is using what we call the POP method. And I think it's so important to people like, oh, Jay, people keep showing interest in my offer, but they're not actually wanting to convert or buy, or like they're engaging on my content, but that engagement is never turning into a client enrollment. I can almost guarantee it is because there's something off with your program promise. And
Hmm.
when I say the POP method, it's really about clarifying what the end result is going to be that your clients can expect from working with you. It's not like, you saying that I'm a copywriter or me saying I'm a business coach. That's not a niche. That is not an offer. That is your job title.
Right.
We have to get more specific in regards to what is the end result going to be for this individual. Like, what is the tangible result, the return on investment that they can expect from working with you? So we teach that through the POP method, where we need to pick one problem, and that's like the specific problem that will be solved within your offer. It's not
Hmm.
just like we help you grow your business. Specifically, like if you were to use my offer as an example, I'm not just like, hire me, I'm a business coach, I help you grow your business. It's like, no, I'm a high ticket sales coach, and we will teach you how to articulate your program promise, raise your rates, and overcome client sales objections. That speaks to a specific pain point or pain point specific problem. It's not just like this vague, well, we'll help you launch your business online. Like,
Right.
so you want to pick one problem, and you want to get to a level of specificity, like I shared there. Pick one person. So who is this offer specifically designed for? like you cater to a very specific niche within copywriting in the healthcare space. That's a specific type of person. And the way that you communicate with somebody who's in the healthcare space would be different if you were doing like sales conversion copywriting for an online like doula coach.
Right.
Like the way that you message to them and market to them would be different. So you want to pick one problem, pick one person, and then package one process. When it comes into high ticket sales, overly customizing the delivery of your service can actually dilute your ability to get consistent results for clients. So you want to start to actually like think about your process like an assembly line. I'm from Detroit, so like I think about car assembly lines is the first thing that comes to mind. But like if you were to go into a car factory and if they're producing a car, all the parts come in, they go through a very like specific regimen throughout the process to produce a repeatable result, regardless of who's working or what parts come in. There's an assembly line so that there's some level of predictability that you're going to be able to get consistent results from client to client. Mm-hmm. So you want to pick one problem, pick one person, and then package one process so that when you think about your offer holistically, it's solving a pain point specific problem for a minimum viable audience. We're not trying to appeal to anybody who wants to build a business. Like I'm only talking to people who want to sell high ticket one-on-one services. And even you get another layer of specificity. It's like, okay, well, how do we teach them how to do that? Through organic sales using live video,
right?
Not Facebook ads, not webinars, not evergreen funnels. So like you want to get as dialed in as possible. And kind of going back to the mindset thing, niching down the first, again, a belief is that if I get that specific, I'm going to be leaving money on the table. Mm-hmm. That means I'm going to have to turn away clients. And when you don't have a surplus of clients in the beginning, it can almost feel counterintuitive that like, Jay, I already don't have clients like that for real. Now you are telling me I need to turn people away. Like money is tight. I'm not about to turn away money. And like, it's, I don't know, did you struggle with that when you were like niching down?
Yeah, I was about to say I definitely struggle with that because I was already in the healthcare space because I used my pharmacy background to like start writing. But still healthcare is hella broad, there's all types of healthcare companies out there. And when I joined, I was like, oh, so this needs to be more specific. Like, I thought we could just talk about an industry, not like one specific person. And so it was rough because I also had current clients who did not fit that mold. So it was like, it was really, it made me reflect on like whether I thought like I was good enough to be that specific and then like tap into that specific group of people. It made me question if it was the right financial decision because like you said, you already have this money on the table, or you have this pool of money that you feel like you can pull from, and then you're like, oh no, make that pool smaller. Like you need to be very specific about what types of people you are trying to serve with this service. So it was definitely a trying experience, and it makes you really have to trust the process and also trust yourself in the service that you're offering, because like you have to be confident in what you are packaging in order to say, hey, this is definitely for this specific type of person. I know it's going to help you, and then be able to actually convert those people and provide it for them and get them results.
And like, I can say it all day, but like, it's always great to hear from somebody else who's not me. But like, what's the, like having done that for like over a close to a year now, like, is that true? Like, I know somebody's like, okay, girl, I hear you, but like you did it, but like, was it actually beneficial?
No, yeah, it definitely was. Because even as you were describing the services that you offered, right? Like, you added on the layers of offering one-to-one services, and then, in a live video format. And I was thinking to myself, that's so true, because when I saw what you offered, I could immediately say, yes, this is for me, or no, this is not for me. And so when I created my service, like my signature service, which is content marketing strategies for private healthcare providers, somebody immediately knows whether they are a private healthcare provider who needs content marketing strategies or not. So they can say, when they see my live video come up or when they see email from me, they're like, okay, yes, this is something I can use, or no, this is not something I can use. And that no is okay. Like that's something that I think also takes a while to be comfortable with. Is like you don't want everybody to say yes, this is for me. You want them to be able to choose whether this is for them or not and recognize whether it's for them or not. So it's definitely helped me in the long run. Like I have clients that are in a specific group, and so that makes it easier on me when I'm doing the service for them, because I'm not trying to like customize all of these different things for different people. And yeah, and it makes it easy for referrals. Like you talk about that a lot, how when someone knows what service you offer, they can think, oh, I know of a person who would definitely benefit from this. And they can go share that with that person.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because there's been so many of you guys from Services That Sell. Like, I refer y'all all the time. And it's not like about me getting a kickback or, referrals only need to come if you get paid for it. But like when people are so specific, like a friend of mine, she's a client, but one of my cousin, she works at a company and their CFO quit right before Corona.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we need to have a virtual CFO come in who specializes in the nonprofit space, where they're dealing, like their revenue comes from some sort of like government entity or from like grants. So there's just like different accounting needs that they have. And like one of my clients, she specializes in nonprofits that are doing more than $1 million in revenue, that need a virtual controller, but not somebody, they're not at this point yet where they need like a full-time CFO staff. And I've literally sent her, she's my nonprofit board that I sit on. She's now the controller for us. And I just referred her to my cousin, because like I'm literally in the car. We were going to Cold Stone and she's like, girl, just talking like girl talk. The CFO just quit yesterday. I'm like, what? And she's telling us this is what we need. They sent the email out asking if we knew anybody. I was like, oh, I know the perfect person. It just makes it so easy for you to be referred. And I think too, the beautiful part about it is like when you start thinking about, okay, how do you be top of mind when it comes to like, publication features in Forbes or Business Insider or Entrepreneur Inc. Or you think about who's going to be the person who's delivering the workshops or the keynotes at these, industry leading events. And typically it's not the generalist who comes top of mind when that event host or when that publication writer is trying to think of somebody that they can either interview or that they can invite to come speak on their stage. They want somebody who is specific and who is the expert. Mm-hmm. And, if you're the go-to content marketing individual in, like in private practice, anybody who is hosting an event for like private healthcare professionals and they want to talk, about like content marketing or online, like marketing from a content perspective, who do you think is going to come top of mind?
And who are they going to pay a premium price for because they are an expert?
Hello.
Your girl.
They're not going to be saying, well, can we just, this is a free event, we can't really pay you. No, like, and quite honestly, it's just I've been featured in Forbes twice. I've been in Black Enterprise. Blavity has hired me to literally be a key workshop speaker on every one of their events for a full year. Mm-hmm. I never pitched myself for any of those opportunities. It was honestly, the more dialed in and specific I got, the more those, types of opportunities came knocking at my door with first class fights and like multiple 4-figure speaking fee checks. And I was like, oh, this is all I needed to do. Okay. This is all I needed to do. Like the more niche and specific I got, the more, because those individuals, like you have to think about the mindset of the buyer, whether it's a one-on-one client or the event host or the person who's writing the publication, mm-hmm. and think about like, who would they want to put in front of their audience? They want somebody who is an authority, who is an expert. And typically those are individuals who are specific with the type of service or expertise that they deliver or have a kind of position themselves in.
Yeah. So it's like a temporary pain up front of niching down, but for a much greater long-term, long-range benefit.
Absolutely. I think so, at least.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay. So we picked our person, our problem. We packaged this process that we are offering, and then when it comes time to actually sell it, mm-hmm. to make the offer, something that you teach is like a permission-based sales approach. So can you describe what that type of approach is and how that works?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've ever, or anybody who's listening, if you've ever felt like sleazy or like pushy or like you say you don't want to be like the used car salesman, but it feels like that where it's like, I created a new thing, sign up. Like, and that's all you keep saying in content. I'm just a really big person on like direct response marketing and permission based sales. And direct response marketing is when you think about the type of content that you're publishing, whether it's a live stream video or even like, you know, a static image on your Instagram newsfeed and a long form caption or your Instagram story, think about direct response. How am I creating this content in a way that if somebody who is consuming it, they are encouraged through the type of content that I'm creating to actually provide a direct response, you know,
Mhm.
to actually engage or to respond to the content beyond just like double tapping and liking it. So all of the content that we create is with this idea of how can I, you know, the content I'm creating, how can I make it to the point or speak, you know, create the content in a way that is not teaching them what to do. I think a lot of times people too talk about you need to in your free content you give away the why and the what, but you sell the how.
Mhm.
In theory, that's like cute, but like, what does that mean practically? It's not that you don't you're always going to be teaching in your content to some degree, but you're not going to necessarily teach people what to do. You're going to teach them how to think and
Mhm.
what to think. It's more of when I think of direct response, it's how are we getting somebody to like question their current beliefs, to be open to a different perspective than what they had thought before, to create some type of polarizing content that is like I'm known for like snatching edges and like people always say I'm like the
All the
hardcore all the time. I'm very like gut punching with my content because I want you like I want if you listen to my content, I want you to like either you're in or you're out. Like
Mhm.
it's none of this like lukewarm sitting on the fence type of stuff. So that type of content typically will elicit somebody to want to give a response to say like, oh my gosh, like we get people who respond to our content all the time. So when you think about direct response, this is like what happens. This is what initiates this permission-based sales. Is you're getting people through your content. Kind of think about it like getting them to raise their hand
Mhm.
to saying like, ooh, they're showing some level of interest. Whether that might be them sharing your content is a really great indicator that your content has evoked them in some way. Them actually leaving a comment on the piece of content or sending you a direct message. That's all of them saying like they're raising their hand. So we start by creating content that gets people to actually raise their hand to say like, yes, I'm interested in this in some capacity. And then from there, we start a conversation, whether that conversation is happening in the newsfeed comments, but more so think about those private conversations that are happening in your direct message feed or on a book sales call. And even through the sales call, you know, we're always trying to the whole point of the sales call, I think the difference with permission-based sales versus other type of sales approaches is I never, and I teach my clients, you never go into the sales conversation with the goal of getting the yes. You go into the sales conversation with the goal of getting a decision to be made. Whether
Mhm.
that decision is yes to work with you or no to not work with you, it's all about having like serving over selling. How can I just help this client make the next best decision for them to help them accomplish the goal they want to accomplish? And when you think about it from that mindset, we're always just making invitations. So, like, what that might look like on a sales conversation is asking the question of, instead of saying, like, okay, yes, you sound like you're like at the point where you have to start talking about money. Let's just fast forward to that part of a sales conversation for an
Mhm.
example. Like, some other people might be like, okay, well, this is how much it costs. Do you want to enroll or do you want to buy? Versus saying, okay, I think based off of what you shared, your pain points and the problems that you're experiencing align with what the promise of our program is. So first, permission based is like, is this even the right person for the offer that you're selling? So
Mhm.
you're kind of giving yourself permission to say this is actually a good fit of a client, and I'm within integrity knowing that based on the problems that they've expressed, my program promise aligns to help actually solve that. So that's a check. But then it's just asking the question of, okay, where do you think that we should go from here? Allowing like when you kind of can shift the dialogue in that way, they start selling you
Right.
and almost like qualifying themselves. Another question that we like to ask is like, you know, what at the very beginning is like, why me and why now? Why did you book this sales call with? Like, why did you book this call with me, and why is this important for you specifically right now? they're literally selling themselves on like why you versus some other coach. And urgency is always a really important factor to qualify during your sales conversations, is why do they need to be solve this problem now versus waiting another 3 months or 6 months. But it's all about your energy and how you show up in the call, and like the phrasing that you use within the questions. So that's just the type of sales approach that I like. It's never thinking that coming from an ego standpoint or like a pushy sales, like I'm never pressuring or pushing anybody to buy my thing. It's always about, okay, what are your pain points? Does that align with the program promise? If that's a yes, then it's like, okay, where do you think that we should go from here? And it allows them to start asking closing questions versus you having to like pitch them on your service or convince them that you're the one for them. They're kind of able to sell themselves on why you through that type of conversation dialogue. So that's just the type of, that just aligns with my level of integrity and aligns with like just my energy when it comes to sales. And it always just, typically whenever we can sell that way, from a permission-based standpoint and more of a logical versus an emotional standpoint too, we don't necessarily like call that out in services that sell, but that is layered into the approach that we teach you guys. So some like psychology behind why we do what we do in that format is when you sell from like an emotional perspective, in the sense of like more of like this fear-based sales, like if you don't buy this, you're going to be missing out. And it's more of this like emotional type of language. We like to teach our clients to sell from more of a logical, like what is the return on investment going to be for them? What are the tangible results or the outcomes that are measurable? More like data-driven results type of language versus some people do a more emotional sales where it can if not done properly, it can feel like a guilt trip. Or like this fear-based, like if you don't buy, Corona's gonna kill you type of thing.
Yeah, or like somebody's trying to like trying to trap you, like trying to get you to buy something that's not quite right. Like,
and you're only buying purely out of like this emotional. Normally it's done through like fear-based sales, because most people don't do it right. Emotional sales, it normally goes bad way faster than it goes good. So we focus on more like logical based sales approach that's permission based, that starts with that direct response type of organic content.
Yeah. One reason that I like that approach a lot is because it works for a lot of different like target clients. So my target clients are healthcare providers. Like they are all about numbers and like evidence. Like you're not about to sell them a $3,000 service off of emotion. Like they need to see what they need to see. And so in being able to like frame the sales conversation in a very permission-based and logical way, it's like, you know, they appreciate that. And that works for, you know, all types of different audiences as well. Whereas if it's more of an emotional approach, I feel like that's not as widely received of an approach for all of these, you know, different types of people who you could be selling to. I think the logical, it's not that it's the safer option, but it's a more respectful option, I feel.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of the pressure off of you because you've created this service that you know gets people these results. Like you built it through the services that sell process in our case. And so the way that you mentioned it being an invitation, like you're basically saying, hey, I created this awesome thing that's going to get you these great results. Would you like to get these results that this offer is going to provide? So it kind of puts you like on an even playing field instead of going into the conversation feeling like, oh, I'm this little girl who created this thing and I hope this person buys it from me. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it psychologically puts you kind of on the same level. Like, hey, I'm a person. I created this thing that I am an expert in. I think that it can help you. Do you think that it can help you? If so, you know, do you want to use it? Versus like trying to get them to, I don't know, invest in something that feels like it's not.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think too, like it's focusing more on the value that you deliver versus I think like getting the sympathy of like just support my business. Like I think we, especially in the beginning stages, we can get so caught up in like wanting to almost build this nonprofit. I don't want to charge too much because I don't want to be out of the range of somebody's budget. Like, that's all emotional based decisions
Mm-hmm.
rather than like logical based decisions of, you're building a business, not a nonprofit. So like, your business needs to generate revenue and turn a profit for it to be considered a business, like from a tax even perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, when you start elevating your price points, the people's buying criteria changes. So like, if you're like going into Target and you're about to buy a handbag that's, $27, you're probably not like thinking at a logical level. It's just like, is this cute? It's $27. So it's not like a high risk. You're not like, even if you only use it one time or never use it and you end up donating it or giving it away to somebody, like there's not like, it's not going to hurt you
Mm-hmm.
more than likely. Like, it's not going to like hurt your pockets. But if you walk into Louis Vuitton and you're about to drop like $2,700 on a bag, the criteria that you are evaluating completely changes from when you're trying to buy that $27 purse at Target. Like, you start thinking about like your identity. What is this bag? How are you going to feel when you're carrying it? How do you feel if you're going to be perceived when you're wearing it? Like, what does this say about you? Like all these other types of criteria start to go into your mind. So when you can start selling based off of logic versus emotion, it also appeals to that higher level of buying criteria that changes when you start elevating the price point of your offer. And it speaks like at when people are spending, a higher price point than what their maybe normal buying habits are. Like you said, they're not going to just buy off of emotion. Like, they may feel great about it, but if it doesn't make sense and it doesn't actually, like, you haven't been able to communicate that this is actually going to close the gap in regards to the problem that they're experiencing, they're not going to be just at will to just be like, oh yeah, we'll just buy it and just see what happens.
I'm gonna put it right back on the shelf.
It's not.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so I think when you have these, when you have more buying criteria that are running through your head because of this higher ticket item, then that comes across in questions. So on these sales questions, on these sales calls, people are not necessarily gonna just say yes outright or just say no. They might have follow-up questions about what you just said or the service that you offer. And so in your right response training, a lot of what you teach is about how to overcome the objections that might be presented on these sales calls, like how to navigate those specific conversations to still try to get to a transaction or a decision on that sales call. Are there specific objections that you feel like come up more often than others? And could you provide some examples of like how you teach your clients how to overcome those objections?
I mean, one thing that you have to remember is every question is a potential objection. And every question is typically a limiting belief that they have. Well, there's a limiting belief that's rooted in what's causing them to ask the question. A lot of the time they're thinking it privately, but they're not publicly saying it. So you have to like kind of be able to infer or to kind of like ask them more questions to kind of peel back the layers. But so that's something I want to like point out is that every question is an objection or a potential objection. When somebody's like, well, how long is this going to take for me to complete? The potential objection is that either they don't have the time or that now they don't have now is not the good time, or that they don't have the time to actually do it, which can give them a reason as to not buy. And the belief behind it of like, well, how long is this going to take? We don't know what belief that they're holding that may be limiting, which may be preventing them from wanting to make a decision to move forward. So I think time is like, I don't have a time for this, or now is not the right time. This sounds like everything that I need, but can you circle back to me when you open enrollment again and you're taking on clients again in like 3 or 6 months? So they keep wanting to delay. And the objection there, like the concern that we have to overcome is like helping. It's not, they probably see the value, but they don't see the priority in why they need to invest in it now versus waiting. So the objection that we have to overcome when that comes up is like, why is this a priority now? And kind of like, for that example that we might do, it's like, she's like, no, this sounds like everything that I need. I'm trying to grow my business. I haven't been able to get any sales yet. I've been, working at my business for a year. I've already enrolled in like Amy Porterfield's email list building course, and I've taken another course on how to build a course, and I have my course. I'm still working on growing my email list. I haven't made any money. Your program sounds like what I need, but maybe it sounds like something that I'm already kind of getting in my other program. I'm going to just like, wait, thanks so much. But it's our responsibility. Why is this a priority? And help them see is, you know, if you've already gone a year without making any money, are the programs that you currently have that you're enrolled in now actually teaching you how to do the thing that you are struggling to do, which is actually selling your service and articulating your promise? Well, no, my current programs, that might be another objection. I'm already in another program or have another coach, or I'm working with another contractor. I don't need you to. So then we have to like reframe and say, okay, where are you with who you're working with now? Are they closing these gaps that you just communicated with me? The answer is going to be no, because if they were closing those gaps, they wouldn't have a problem. But then it's like, okay, well, no, what you currently have from a resource perspective is not serving you. But sometimes people in the online space are like, well, I don't want to buy another program that I don't finish, or I want to wait until these are done. Kind of a spin around I like to always use is like, you know, did you go to college? Most of our clients have. When you were in college, did you only take one class at a time to graduate within 4 years? The answer is like, no, I had a full curriculum. Same is true in your business. Like having one program, if you just keep taking one program at a time, it'll take you like 9 years to graduate. So if you want to, you know, accelerate your ability to be able to close these gaps, just understand your business is almost similar to like a college curriculum in regards to you having to educate yourself. So that might be a way to kind of shift their perspective on that. Or from a time perspective, you know, help them see the gap. It's like helping them see what the return on investment is going to be for them, and also help them see what the cost of inaction is going to be. So we talk about that in the right response, like ROI versus COI, return on investment versus cost of inaction. So like, how much is it cost? Help them see what is this going to cost them if they choose to continue to delay this decision, or choose to continue to delay solving this problem. So it's like all the last year that you weren't making any money, how much money could you have made if you were actually selling?
Yeah.
And how much money are you going to not make by choosing not to solve this problem now by working with us? And then if you, again, going back to the data of when you can make that clear, that like, it helps reframe how they're making their decision. And it also helps undercut these limiting beliefs that are showing up for them. The spousal objection is always one that I think happens often. Like, this sounds great, but I got to talk to my partner, or a business partner. Maybe in your case, maybe they don't have to, I'm not sure if they're like, when you say private practice, I don't know if they're maybe necessarily like individually run or not, but you know, the objection of, this sounds really good, but I got to talk to my business partner first, or this sounds really, really good, but I got to talk to my wife or talk to my husband before I make a decision. And that can be really terrifying. I know a lot of our clients struggle when that objection comes up, because it's like, well, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? Like, do I gotta just wait? Yeah. But it's never out of your hands. Like, it's always really important for you to control the sales container. So like I love when we get the spousal objection. It's my favorite one, because my first question will always be like, you know, I totally respect that. Like, making sure that you are in alignment with who's in your household when it comes to these bigger financial decisions is important, because that will also be important on how it impacts how you show up in the program after you enroll. My first question will always be, what questions, like, do you imagine that your partner's going to have some questions or concerns about this? The answer is always yes. You start to coach them on how they're going to tell their partner about your program. So you ask the question of, well, what questions will they have? Well, you know, he's probably going to wonder, like, I've hired a coach before and it didn't work out. He's probably going to want to know why you're any different. Okay, that's a really great question. What would you tell him? So now, again, I'm not telling her why I'm so great. She's telling me why I'm different. And I think it's really important when you're dealing with somebody, when they have to go get an external input on like whether the budget or a business partner or a spouse, is a lot of the time when they run back to go tell their spouse about, you know, working with you, they'll just be like, oh my gosh, she was just fantastic. I just feel like they'll start talking about their feelings and their emotions. And their partner or their spouse typically only cares about the facts and the numbers. So we want to make sure that we are preparing them for that conversation, so they know how to communicate the value of what you do when you can't communicate that value yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of a follow-up that we like to do whenever there's a spousal thing is, we'll coach them on what are all the questions they might ask. Okay, how will you respond? And then we'll coach them on how to give their responses. Typically after the call, I'll make a special video that, thanks the client for being on the call, but then completely addresses every one of those concerns that they just told me that their spouse is going to have. So
Mm-hmm.
I speak to them about their concerns so I can make sure that I'm communicating the value well. It looks like you're going above and beyond because you are, but it completely exceeds. Nobody ever expects the video that's for the partner or for the spouse. And then you're also talking about how them doing this work is going to positively impact their household or impact the dynamic of their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of the times, if it's an individual, they want to make more money. So like the family can go on vacation or they can retire their spouse or like whatever it is, you want to figure out the why, but then you include that in the video because now it gets the partner like, girl, you need to be in this program. Cause like,
I'll pay for it for you.
right. Cause then you get them committed into the vision of what's available once they achieve and accomplish this goal or overcome this problem. So like those are some, I think, objections that come top of mind that I think are relevant. And you don't in sales, objections are unavoidable. Like you're always going to be faced with objections, but that doesn't mean that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that, okay, there's maybe some additional clarification that we need to provide, or we haven't done a good job of connecting the dots. Like we understand it, but there's still gaps that they don't understand. So it's always important for you just to, am I meeting my prospect where they are? Am I aware of the decision-making gaps that currently exist? And how am I creating bridges to help them overcome those gaps?
Yeah, and so many of these questions that come up, like depending on how far you are into your business, like you can anticipate a lot of these objections that people are going to have. And so, something that you teach is definitely taking that time to anticipate those objections and then figuring out how you respond to them appropriately, like to get a person to move past that objection or to address the objection appropriately.
Yeah. And like my favorite way to do that is before you ever get on a sales call. So like
Mm-hmm.
that's how you know you've really dialed in, where you're overcoming sales objections through your free content. So by the time and I think it's really important anytime you're selling, if people don't buy, you need to go back and ask why.
Yep.
And ask them like, okay, beyond just like, I don't have the money, what's the reason behind, like if money were not a concern, what's the reason why you didn't enroll? Because that will start to help you get more awareness on like the actual like again, those limiting beliefs or the psychological impact like that's informing the decision that they made. So then you can create content that speaks to that objection through your free organic content. Because again, we're not teaching people what to do in our free content. We're teaching them how to think in our free content. So we're like removing those limiting beliefs, like overcoming those sales objections before they even realize they have a sales objection. So by the time that you get on a sales call, your free content has already qualified your leads. It has already overcame the most common objections, the biggest concerns. So by the time, permission-based sales gets really easy when you've already done that before a sales call.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only questions they're going to be asking are closing questions, not objection questions. They'll be asking, okay, so what do the next steps look like? How do we get started? Like, what can I expect from in regards to client onboarding? Those are all closing questions, not like objection questions in regards to things that might deter why they won't need you.
Right.
So I'm glad that you brought that up because objections are unavoidable. However, you can overcome them before a sales conversation takes place.
Yeah. Before we wrap, I want to excuse me, I want to remind the listeners about something you said earlier about sales as a contact sport. This is what Drisha was talking about. Like this whole process that you just described, this is the contact of it. Like you can't avoid these conversations. You can't avoid, having objections come up. It's something that you're naturally going to have to deal with if you want to make sales for a high ticket, a premium service. So I appreciate you like going into detail about how these conversations work and how you can overcome some of those things. That's something you preach to us all the time, that sales is a contact sport. Is there like one other thing you can think of that you preach to your clients all the time? Like, what's something related to sales that you feel like you always have to say and drill into us?
Oh,
I know there are so many to choose from.
Sales is like these are like my little like if I were ever a politician, they're like, you need to have your one-liners. I have like 5 of them, but like sales the contact sport, conversions happen through conversations. Like never forget that. Whenever you're about to have a sale, there's some sort of conversation that's happening. But in the digital space, that can be happening through direct message, in the comments of your chats, and like even on a podcast interview, like you finding me, that was a conversation. We didn't have it, but I was having it with Nikayla on the Side Hustle Pro podcast.
Yep.
That was a conversation that you were a witness of, even if you weren't a direct participant of.
Mm-hmm.
The transformation happens after the transaction. I think is probably like a huge one, which means you need to sell. Like there needs to be an energetic financial exchange of value before your prospect is going to experience the transformation. And I don't preach this to you guys enough. This is something that I'm starting to preach more, because I know there's probably somebody thinking, well, I can't do high ticket sales. I keep just discounting my rates. And discounts don't make it easier for you to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was literally talking to somebody about this earlier today on a sales call. And she's like, I was selling high ticket, nobody bought. So I'm like, so what is your plan? She was like, I think I can just figure it out on my own. So she wasn't about to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her, like, so what is your game plan to be able to solve this problem, to put your business get your business back to a profitable standpoint? She's like, well, I was thinking about going back and offering a discount. And I said, do you really think that's going to actually solve your problem? And she's like, no, because I've done the discount before and I still get met with the same money objection or time objection that I did when I was selling full ticket. And I said, it's not like your prices. Money is just an easy like scapegoat that it's very easy for somebody to just like, well, it's too expensive, or I can't swing that right now. And I don't think I preach this enough, but I always say, like, money, is it that the person legitimately does not have money in their bank account? Meaning, like, if they invest with you, their rent doesn't get paid? Or is it that they have the money, but if they spend it on you, they do not understand how they're going to make it back or see the value in prioritizing moving those funds there? And 90% of the time when you're dealing with clients and they say money is the issue, it is because of they have the money, but they just haven't yet prioritized or can see the value into why they should spend it on you or with you specifically. So I just think it's really important for anybody who's thinking like, I'm gonna just if you're doing a lot of like deep discounting, or you feel as if you keep having to like cut your rate, focus on your promise. Like you really need to dial in on what you probably need to pivot your promise to some way, shape, or form. And I think that's probably maybe my other little like ad lib. You need to pivot your promise. Pretty much every client that we work with has to pivot their promise, or they have no promise at all within their offer, and we help them create one. But I think those are some of like sales is a contact sport. If you can just remember those things every single day, like, what's the metric? Okay, did I talk to any strangers today? Or did I talk to anybody I know? How many like people did I make contact with today? How many conversions happen through conversations? How many new conversations did I start or continue with my audience or prospects today? Transformation happened after the transaction. How many people did I even tell them about my offer and tell them how next steps on how they can work with me? Mm-hmm. If you just track those 3 metrics on a daily basis for 90 days, I guarantee you will make more money. Because what you focus on will amplify just naturally from just like the law of attraction and the law of like attention. So I think those are some things as like last call reminders, but don't think that discounting is going to solve your problem. Yeah. Because people will say they don't have the money. I don't even care if you're selling it for free. They'll be like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
You have to develop your ability to articulate your value and communicate it in a way that other people understand, and have a level of confidence and certainty when you're delivering that message.
Yeah. And related to that too, another one you always say is don't try to solve broke people problems.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, I forgot about that one, but that's a huge one. Like stop trying. And that's not to say that like you can't help people who are in, it's not like a derogatory thing. It's just, you have to remember that if you're building a business, and you choose a target audience of, you want to help, middle school girls in underrepresented communities whose parents are on welfare or on government assistance. You want to help them with their self-confidence. It's a beautiful mission. Who the heck is going to pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's more of a nonprofit where you're dealing with like grant-based work or like donations to be able to serve that community. It's not to say that that can't still be a passion and a desire and something you have a heart for, but that may not be the best business model to create your offers around. So I think people misconstrue like their passion versus like a profitable business model.
Mm-hmm.
You're running a business. We got to solve problems that align with a target audience who can actually, and I said another one is, don't project your limiting money beliefs onto your prospects.
Mm-hmm.
I say that all the time, because then people are like, well, they can't afford me. Are you like, it is not your responsibility to determine whether or not they have a budget for you. Like, and a lot of the time those are just our limiting beliefs, like
right.
because of our lack of self-worth or our lack of self-value, or just maybe you've never invested that way in yourself before. It doesn't mean that somebody else won't invest or value that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the last one. Do not project money beliefs onto your prospects.
So y'all should just type these quotes up and print them out and just paste them on your wall. Just look at them every day, because I like literally I hear your voice running through my head like most days of the week, telling me something that I need to be doing. Yeah, I am just so overwhelmed with gratitude for you coming on the podcast and sharing all of your sales expertise with us. Like I probably drop your name on every 5th episode of the podcast. So if y'all been listening for a while, you know who this is. If not, you definitely need to find out who this is, because like of all the people online who like coach service-based business owners, I think that you are the most genuine, the most knowledgeable, and provide the most value, like legit. And I don't even fangirl over people, like that's not my personality, but I love you and I just appreciate your expertise so much. I'm so grateful.
Oh, well, the feeling is mutual. I know I'm not supposed to have favorite clients, but you're definitely one of my faves. So just thank you. I mean, that's like just like super affirming. And I think that's probably like the biggest compliment any of us as business owners desire, is like, we all started our businesses with this desire to like want to create an impact. And it means the world to me knowing that I've been able to have a business impact on you. But I just imagine like, I mean, I've seen your confidence evolve over the past year and a half. And I like to think about the ripple effect that's happening in your family dynamic, how you're going to be raising your kids, like the limiting beliefs that your daughter and your children will not have, because you have been able to like fix them and rewrite them before you pass them down. And I think just thank you for that. It's like, that's like literally like the core of why I do what I do. And my week has been met knowing that that's accomplished. So just thank you so much.
So let people know how they can find out more about you for themselves. Where can they follow you? How can they sign up for your programs?
Yes. My biggest thing that I want you to do if you're listening to this is do not just be like inspired or motivated by what you're hearing today in this dialogue. I always want you to be able to start implementing and taking action and executing. So the thing that would bring me the most joy is if you actually send me a direct message on Instagram. I'm at Jerisha Hawk, or tag us on your Instagram stories if you like listening to this podcast episode, and let us know like what is one action item that you were able to gather that you can start implementing today from what you heard.
Mm-hmm.
What was acquired, what was a gem that you picked up today, or what is an action item that you can execute on. Because I think like, I know you create your content not just with a desire to have, your millennial listeners just continue listening. You want them to change, like take control of their life and have actionable things they can start to immediately execute. So that's like that's my homework for you, is tag us on Instagram stories, tag both of us so we can both know.
Mm-hmm.
And just let us know what is the one thing that, you probably had a ton of nuggets, but just what was one gem, what was one takeaway or one action item that you can start implementing and executing. Because like, we want you to get results from what you're listening to here. And that result first needs to start with, okay, what's the action that you're going to commit to? And a level of accountability is tagging us on Instagram stories. So all the layers that are necessary for you to be successful in that one assignment.
So you have your homework, Lazy Millennials. Make sure you get on that. Tag us. Again, she's at Jerisha Hawk, and I am at Lazy Millennial Podcast. Thank you so much, Jerisha, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Anytime and always. Thanks for having me.